Flashback 3.2 The Occult of Bael, First Prince of Hell, and Baalism. Katie had asked the hotel front desk where we could buy stationery supplies, and learned there was a hobbies and crafts shop walking distance from the hotel, called Wizards of Crafts. Well, we were off to see the wonderful Wizards of Crafts. Katie smiled a lot, and the name Wizards of Crafts made her smile so widely it spanned again ear to ear. She gleefully exclaimed, "I love crafts! I have always loved to make things. Just going to a craft store has always made me so happy. This is so fun." It had become very evident that one of the traits that I liked about Katie was that she was a very happy person, unless something was very actively making her unhappy. She was default, upbeat, happy. She counterbalanced Bob's doom and gloom, offsetting his glum demeanor and jaded perspective. We walked maybe 15 minutes to the Wizards of the Craft shop. We stayed clear of rose bushes that we observed along the way as we walked, which oddly there were a lot of rose bushes throughout Athlone. And blooming roses in February and March seemed a bit odd. At least to me it was unusual, but admittedly, I was never a horticulturalist or even a competent florist, so hey, I did not any idea of what these different kinds of strains or species of flowers might be. No one wanted to be bitten by a rose or tattooed by a rose petal, like Katie had been bitten when we first had arrived in Athlone, so again, we kept our distance. The Wizards of the Craft shop was incredibly gaudy. It had over-the-top golden lions flanking the doorway entrance, and above the door was a dragon head leering downward towards the entry. There were gold and metallic shiny doilies and stars and glitter-painted objects everywhere. One corner of the shop was dedicated to role-playing games, RPGs, like Dungeons & Dragons and the Call of Cthulhu. Another corner focused on strategy and board games like chess, checkers, Monopoly, Sorry, and so forth. The store had a surprisingly impressive assortment of paints and brushes, markers, and inks. It had all the basics, of course: tape, staples, paper, cardboard, stickies, pins, paper clips, and so on. There was even a small section sporting pre-made cosplay costumes, though they seemed more for live-action role-playing, LARPing as it's called, than dress up at Comic-Cons or some sort of conventions. And next to the cosplay costumes was the sewing section. I was impressed with the diversity of stuff this little shop had to offer. A medium-height, anorexic thin girl with pitch black hair and a nose ring, maybe 17 years old, wearing matte black pleated PVC skirt, a silver pentastar necklace, and a black t-shirt adorned with an inverted flaming cross and the words, "Hear me and heed me." Her face was elongated compared to most people, but was not misshapen or weird, it was just noticeably oblong. She stood at an island cash register station near the entrance. She spoke, "Welcome to the Wizards of the Craft," with a rather insincere enthusiasm. Her low energy rivaled Bob's jaded demeanor. Katie leaned over to whisper a question in my ear. "Do you think she's an Irish goth girl? Or do you think she is really a devil worshipper cultist?" I leaned close so that no one would hear my reply. "I think she's just a goth girl operating a craft and hobby shop. Of course, Deputy Taylor, she might think otherwise." Yes, Deputy Taylor warned us we should trust no one. And so I said further to Katie, "Well, if the deputy's right, she could be a cultist or at least dangerous, so let's keep our eyes peeled. You never know what she might do. She does have a nose ring." Katie smiled, hoping it would ease her concerns and mine if she just put on that happy face that she was clearly becoming branded by. As we entered the store and passed the register island, I noticed an impulse buy fishbowl on the counter filled with colorful key rings. Each key fob was encircled in ruby and blood red roses, and written along the outside perimeter of the fob were the words, "Roses of Ambivalence." Katie was drawn to the fishbowl and just grabbed a key ring. "I must have it. It reminds me of my tattoo." She carried it along for our entire wandering until we would check out. As she did, she played with it almost obsessively. She flipped it, she rolled it, she tapped it. She just kept moving it all around, touching it up and down her hands, her legs, her arms. It was getting rather strange. I don't think she was aware how much she was fondling the little fob. Katie's keyring was virtually a fidget spinner for her. She was able to focus so much of her distractions and tensions onto it. They had a section with LED flashlights and lanterns, even wrist and head-worn lamps. I parroted Katie, "I must have it." I extended, "I love flashlights, I always have." "Let's get the wrist and headlamp and flashlights too." I quipped, "You can never have too many lights." Lights are your friends. We had obtained thick construction cardboard paper, spools of different colored yarn, pins, sticky notepads, colored markers, pens, paper, and clips. And of course, we purchased the tools that we needed: scissors, a ruler, craft knives, and so forth. We brought our booty to the cash register island where the goth girl clerk looked down at our selections, our purchases. She looked rather judgmental. She perused them and she smiled. "Making a crime scene board, are we?" We were stunned. How the heck could what we bought scream we're making a crime investigation board? I mean, yeah, the equivalent of a crime scene board, but in any scenario, how could she conclude that's what we're making? How would a random girl know what we're doing? I could only conclude I was spiraling and my emotions were being fanned by anxiety induced by all the crazy that's been going on, and that I was reading things into this that weren't there. The deputy answered, "Yes, we are making a CSI board." The goth girl grinned back. Cool, I like it, liking it." She tilted her head to the side and placed her left hand on the fishbowl of rosy key rings, and she said, "Ouija's shear the veil. Life and death, heaven and hell, rips where the twain do collide." Her head returned to normal and upright, normal posture. She asked, "Will that be all for you today?" I was shocked and asked a little sheepishly, "What did you mean by Ouija's shear the veil?" She replied, "Oh, I just say stuff like that to get rises out of customers. The owner of this place has all sorts of weird little quotes like that. That one also warns, do not cross the veil of life and death unless you are prepared to be dead. Heed it, heed." "The way I see it," she said, "if you use a Ouija board to talk to ghosts, you better not go with them to the other side, or you might not be coming back. You might be dead just like them." Deputy Taylor's eyes darted to me. She said heed. Bob uttered just below his breath, but we could hear his words. "Effing heed." Katie gasped. We all knew she recognized the recurrence of heed in our journey. Again. With our supplies in hand, though, we walked back to the hotel. I swear it was clear skies when we had left the hotel, but upon exiting the Wizards of the Crafts shop, the skies had turned dark with clouds. The sky had turned so dark, in fact, it seemed like a thunderstorm was rapidly approaching. We had barely entered the hotel doors as crackles thundered above and rain began to pour, and pour down it did. It drenched everything within minutes. With the storm raging outside, we worked on our investigation board. We mapped and wrote each cultist target, on its own sticky, along with our assessment of its risk and reward. We blended them into a single target number that we could use to stack rank the cultists for the order that we should liquidate them. As it turned out, Athlone was home to 2 of the cultist targets on the first cultist list. The curio shop Scary Little Things, which adjoined a pub and bar restaurant known as the Hanging Albatross. Both the curio shop and pub were owned by some cultist named Brocco McDema. Of course, Brocco did not really own them, but operated them as if he was the owner. Of course, granted by legal proxy and powers of attorney by none other than Aunt Milmore. Therefore, the Scary Little Things curio shop and the pub now belonged to me. But we had to evict the cultists and take possession of the shop and pub and sell them. The list suggested that Brocco also had at least $50,000 in cash on site. The First Church of the Savior was our next target. It was portrayed as a community non-denominational church, but it was apparently a cover for the worshippers of Baal in Athlone. The church operated as a non-profit religious organization and thus was outside the purview of local authorities, or the financial tracking, or taxation. The church coffers, aka its bank accounts, held a hefty sum of $15 million, and $500,000 in gold bars were said to be in a safe in the head minister's office. The team seemed very satisfied with the detail of our cultist investigation board. Everyone was eager to get going on a real mission, but we were still exhausted from the big push, and our adrenaline was finally fully waning. We had all but embraced the madness. We were ready to go on our first mission for God and wealth, for righteousness. But first, we had to take it easy. Flashback 3.3 Psych Assessment arriving in Athlone, Ireland. Dr. Hyder's iPad window flashed. Incredible! Richard, that was a remarkable tale. Your knowledge of demonology, mythologies, it's so impressive. Seeing how well you wove your knowledge and experience into this new narrative, what a demonstration of how powerful your mind really is, even your subconscious. The city of Athlone sounds right out of a horror movie. I'm going to do some research and compare your Athlone to what the internet says it's all about. The characters you encountered were so colorful, and you recalled such explicit details, Richard. You know, Richard, people generally do not recall that level of minutia, like a spy does. It suggests that maybe you are making a lot of extra texture to make your story convincing. It's a common trait for people who tell stories. Your horror story, Inheritance in Athlone, seems to set up a very long adventure, Richard. I am really looking forward to hearing all about them and what you do and where you go and what happens to your team. As he always did, Caselli commanded, Richard, please continue telling us your story. And well, I continued to share more of my life's content.